Hi there, welcome to the second episode of my 10-minute moans today. And this 10-minute moan, the topic is quite an embarrassing situation for the SNP down in Westminster when Kirsty Blackman was refused access on a committee that she quite fancied being on, and that's down to the embarrassing result at the election for the SNP. So the story is in the Scottish Daily Express, another story about Douglas Dickey, who seems content in wrecking the SNP, so he's doing no bad job. And the headline is, the SNP denied place on Westminster Committee as ramifications of election humiliation hammered home. Kirsty Blackman was rebuffed when she pleaded for the Nats to be involved in the Modernisation Committee, which will consider reforms to the House of Commons procedures, standards and working practices. And that makes me smile. So, the ramifications of the SNP's general election humiliation were hammered home at Westminster this week when they were denied a place on a new committee. The Nats had lorded it up as the third biggest party in the Commons for 9 years, but Scottish voters sent them back to the shadows on July 4th, returning just 9 MPs. It means many of the perks they enjoyed, such as 2 questions at Prime Minister's questions, have gone to the Liberal Democrats. The new reality for the Nats has been hitting home since the election, and another byproduct emerged this week when they tried to get a place on the new Modernisation Committee. Aberdeen North MP Kirsty Blackman pleaded with the Leader of the House, Lucy Powell, for the Nationalists to be included, but she was told the situation was a case of mathematics in the House. I love that. Mr. Blackman, no, you've just misgendered the Daily Express. I suggest if anyone in the Express is watching this, they go and change that, because that's against the law in Scotland now. You could face criminal charges if you deliberately misgender somebody. And calling Kirsty Black Mr. Blackman, I would suggest you need to have a wee look at that, okay? So anyway, Mr. Blackman, as you say, said, given the likely breakdown, does the Leader of the House understand that only 3 parties will be represented on the committee? It would be possible to flex that slightly and have voices from more than just 3 parties on the committee, while still keeping it relatively small. But, she was told, it is an unfortunate case of mathematics that apply across all select committees. On other occasions in past parliaments, her party had benefited from the formulas that are used. Ms Powell did commit to regular and meaningful engagement with any and all parties. Later in the debate, Ms Blackman, got it right this time, who is the chief whip for the 9 Nats, accused Ms Powell of failing to engage with the SNP. She said the SNP would have liked a seat in the committee. I'm pleased to hear that the Leader of the House said about trying to ensure that all voices are heard, but like the shadow Leader of the House, I would like to have had more conversations with her beforehand about it, so that we could have suggested our views on the best way for our voices to be heard. If she really wants to work collegiately, I can't say that word, we are happy to do that, but unfortunately this was not got off to the most collegiate start. The government should consider the best way to do that, because I am concerned about the geographical issue. What you forgot there is geographical issue isn't a problem, because we have 57 Scottish MPs down there representing Labour, Conservative and Lib Dem. Geography's not the issue here, Kirsty. Mathematics is your problem, darling. The Modernisation Committee was tasked with looking at reforms to the House of Commons procedures, standards and working practices, and to consider further restrictions on second jobs to ensure MPs serve their constituents. MPs have also approved measures to further limit them from taking up paid lobbying work. That makes sense. So that's a story, and it makes me smile, because this once proud party, who used to try and puff their chest out and put their shoulders back, and really achieved nothing, even when they had the vast majority and almost all Scottish seats at one point. They achieved nothing. And now they're down to 9 seats. They are completely ineffective in Parliament. And a lot of people take that as, well, Scotland's not got a voice. And I take quite a bit of offence to that. Because all the other 40-odd MPs that are down there representing Scottish constituencies are, guess what, representing Scottish constituencies. So you could only think in this manner if you felt that the SNP are the only political voice for Scotland. And that's complete nonsense. Right? The SNP were the only political voice for independence in Scotland, not for the Scottish people. They never have been, and they never will be. Unless, well, that's not technically true, because that joker, Tommy Shepherd, he made a statement the other day there saying that the SNP should try to attract unionist votes. Kind of struggling to see how that would work, Tommy, because by pure definition, a unionist would not want to separate the United Kingdom, which is your sole purpose. So, other than clown feet thinking, we can get a unionist to vote, the reality is very, very few, if any, would actually do that. But I find it incredibly disingenuous of any SNP MP to suggest, as Kirsty Blackman has here, that leaves us with some sort of geographical problem just because there's no SNP people on this particular board, when every other party which has Scottish members of Parliament is represented, because we have Tory, Labour and Lib Dem MPs in Parliament of Westminster representing Scottish constituents. So it isn't a problem to me. I'm quite happy with that. But Kirsty and her wee dummy out the pram mob of 9 just need to understand simple arithmetic. And what it does, it also reminds me of something quite atrocious I've seen in, I think, the last week of Humza Yousaf's stint as First Minister, where he turned to Alex Cole-Hamilton when he had the audacity to ask him quite an important question, and suggested that his question and thoughts were irrelevant because he only held 4 or 5 seats in Scottish Parliament. But what I would suggest to Humza is, and Kirsty Blackman, if you apply simple mathematics, you can work out percentages and you know what a ratio is. Alex Cole-Hamilton actually has a bigger ratio of seats by Lib Dems in the Scottish Parliament than you've got as the SNP in Westminster. So it's another great example of getting a wee bit of karma. Because I'll never forget it. I can't remember what the discussion was. It was just the way it went with Humza Yousaf in First Minister's questions, probably about 4 months ago. And when he was under a bit of pressure, and the way that he spoke to the leader of the Liberal Democrats was unbecoming of the role of any MSP, never mind the one that was meant to be the First Minister. And very, very disingenuous on the basis of the number of seats he was representing. But he was representing, I'm just sure if they got 4 or 5 seats out of the 130 in Holyrood. But that's a bigger ratio and a bigger percentage than having 9 in Westminster, where there's 650. And I wonder how the SNP would react if anyone in Westminster was to be so disingenuous towards the SNP as the leader, the then leader of the SNP and First Minister at the time, how disingenuous he was to Liberal Democrats. You are an insignificant party in a sea of 650 sharks. You'll achieve nothing. And another thing you need to remember is the people that you have slaughtered for years in Westminster, you now expect suddenly respect from them. And it reminds me of that saying, watch who you upset on the way up. Because the way down's a long road and can often be reminded of who you upset on the way up. And that's what's happened to the SNP when they were on the up and they were having almost all the Scottish seats. They cared not a jot about anybody round about them. They're doing the exact same in the Scottish Parliament, whereas now they're in the minority government. Suddenly we're told that everybody in the Scottish Government must work better together, when they wouldn't do that a matter of months ago. So I am delighted to see the SNP ridiculed so early on in the new Parliament in Westminster. And please, Westminster, let's see more of it. If you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification button. But more importantly of all, that's your Kirsty Blackman, the 9 MPs that she's down there with, or any of the cult members in the SNP. Everyone else, have a great day. Cheery bye now.